I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Hello, welcome to your favorite live weekly call-in conspiracy show, although it's not a call-in show this week. Unfortunately, our producer is out. I believe he got a spider bite, so he's all fuckered up. But he'll be fine. I think he's going to go get some antibiotics. Hopefully his leg doesn't blow up. But I think he'll be all right. But a pleasure to be with you guys this week. And you as well, Austin. You weren't here last. It was me and Jacob holding down the fort. So happy to have you back. We thought we weren't going to have you again today. I'll let you announce why some things got moved around, but you won't be with us next week. So it will be a me and Jacob episode next week. But if you want to let people know why, Austin, it's obviously it's kind of you do the honors. It's definitely your place to say why you will not be here next week.
Honestly, man, I was just blessed enough to get another opportunity to pile up in the car and head to Vegas for a couple of days to film some content with Jake again. So that'll be a lot of fun. I think, he had recently gone down the rabbit hole in regard to Detroit. And so that was, we had originally planned on doing a conversation surrounding the Vegas shooting, right? And that still is on the table as potentially, filming some content in regard to the Vegas shooting as well. But there's definitely a few things we've been workshopping and plan to do. So, but I'm super excited. I think once again, just anytime we have the opportunity to get back with some of the homies and back to just in terms of really the drawing board of just providing various alternative theories and theoretical ideas to, broader audiences in a way where hopefully we can, at the very least, focus on things and prioritize things that are far more valuable and don't necessarily even factor into any sort of egoic framework whatsoever, but really try and provide, like what I was explaining to him is I think the ultimate goal is to really bridge the gap between credibility and conspiracy. And I think that was always what I was hoping to do in many ways with my platform, was personally is attempt to reinforce so many of these alternative theories that should be taken seriously with credible connections that are worthwhile and I think provide tangible evidence, right, that we can pursue. And through that process, then you kind of arm yourself with right an ability to have a conversation and also have defense mechanisms necessary to, I think, wander through and tread through that sort of proverbial and dystopian kind of swamp that of propaganda that we're forced to and overexposed to at all times on a daily basis with the 24-hour news cycle. So anyway, the point being is, yeah, and thank you for saying happy anniversary. It was last week. It was my 10-year wedding anniversary, so we had the opportunity to, kind of celebrate that in a real way. So that was a lot of fun, and beyond that, it was kind of one of those important dates, obviously, but at the same time, it was good for me just to kind of take a little bit of time off as well and just unplug from that demoralizing news cycle, because I feel like it has a legitimate effect. It's a very much not only emotionally, but there's a spiritual effect, I think, that takes I think is for most people unaccounted for, and that is something that I find to be extraordinarily problematic in just having a conversation with the average person, and so they're very much emotionally overreacting and lashing out, I think, for the most part, and so yeah, just again, I'm very eager to kind of have an open-minded conversation with Jake, so that'll be a good time next week, and everybody.
I did like how you put that, where credibility meets conspiracy. I've been trying to think of a good way to phrase that, even though I don't entirely like exactly that. Not to criticize you in any way, but I've always been kind of hesitant to put too much shade, I guess, on conspiracy, because I think even that's not the right way. But I guess maybe more of a pizzazz, more of a an entertainment of sorts, because I get exactly what you mean, because people see I guess a good example would be like the Alex Jones of the world, and obviously they're low on credibility, high on entertainment, but it is to some degree, it's what people want. But then there's this opposite thing where you have, I guess I'm not going to name any names because I'm saying somebody who has a stick up their ass, but they'll be crazy, and this might be sometimes with journalists or something for their own reasons, and you totally make sense, but you don't typically see this as much with podcasters, but some people who are overly concerned with respectability, that is how they will be crazy in the realm of like credibility, but they won't speculate whatsoever. And I do think there is something to, I don't know why we've kind of created this weird paradigm, this weird almost like binary that people don't really behave by, because people like to talk about fun things, people speculate, people aren't going to only speak on things that they absolutely 100% can prove. They're going to speak in levels of how much they may buy this thing or that thing, and that's where you kind of get in the realm of talking about, I guess, what people call conspiracies. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's absent credibility, but as long as you're kind of walking your audience along with like how you've gotten there as you get there. I don't know. It's a hard rope to walk. I mean, I've definitely tried to do it myself. I think I kind of, if anyone's followed me along, I kind of same thing. Try to be entertaining as best I can and have fun. Obviously come from the Tower Gang realm and stuff like that. But at the same time, you do try to, stick to the truth and not get, and when you're speculating, just be like, hey, I'm speculating. And when you know something, be like, I know something. And like, yeah, I have crazy ideas, but I have no problem telling you, where, this is based on fact and where this may be just based on where I just have recognized some patterns and I'm making some guesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And reinforcing a concept psychologically is important to me a lot, just internally. And so I might say those things out loud and audibly walk through a thought experiment and take that for what it is. That doesn't, necessarily mean that I'm certain of anything in a sort of concrete, confident manner. But at the same time, it's like the willingness to reflect on your ideas and on a daily basis, and then provide yourself with an ethical framework of core values that you can rely on, as we've said many times in the past, is the way to, I think, properly align yourself to not necessarily be influenced in any real direction, to I think effectively fall into an ideological trap, right? And that's typically in reference to a predetermined outcome, I think, by not only culture creation, social engineers, right, but the MindWar operatives that we discuss so very often in terms of Michael Aquino and From PSYOP to MindWar, the Psychology of Victory. This is real. When we have a PSYOP warfare doctrine that we can point to that proves out the fact that they hope to obviously leverage your over emotional reactionary state to their benefit and lead you down the wrong path, ideologically speaking. And so many people will just inherently embrace these bad ideas because they haven't really effectively isolated the reason why, and necessarily even the path that they are consistently on in the current moment. So we're almost doomed to fail from the start, and you have to do so much damage control and so much basically reflecting on what you thought you knew at a certain rights at any moment in time, honestly. And it's like if you remember The Big Lebowski, right? Walter turns to Donnie when they're talking about basically going to harass that kid because they found Larry Seller's homework in the dude's stolen car. And he's like, and he basically, Donnie asks a question, and he says, Donnie, you're like a child who wandered into the middle of a movie theater, right? And I just legitimately consider the vast majority of people were born into this chaos, right? It's just trying to just get to really a baseline, to a ground zero, where you can effectively kind of arm yourself again with the ability to wade through those very damaging and threatening waters of, I think, intellectual disillusionment. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, now's the time as good as any to learn how to walk that tightrope between credibility and conspiracy. I mean, we are in the time where, I mean, secret societies are being revealed in real time. We didn't get to talk about this last week, but it's still kind of a relevant topic. The outing of Peter Thiel's dialogue, I guess you can call it a conference, if you will, but even it goes furthermore. There's like members of this group. Some people are members. You can go there as a non-member. It is sort of like a conference of sorts, from my understanding. I've read a little bit about some of the people and their aftermath of it. Now, none of the people pretty much are telling us how this is to be what this is like. A lot of them are the kind of people that like I struggle to trust already. So like like the Weinsteins of the world, for example, that like Ayala girl, that like
right? Did you see Eric Weinstein's reaction?
Yeah, I have it all dialed up for to cover on the show tomorrow. Funny, it's quite ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and always remember that's Peter Thiel's Jew, like, and not even trying to be like I don't know, contentious or not contentious, not trying to be saucy there. That he just literally is Peter Thiel's Jew. He is Peter Thiel's money manager. That is what he is. He's also got like a fake degree from. It really is such a perfect picture of like what kind of Epstein was in some ways. Like obviously I don't know anything so far as like the degeneracy, but in like how he is this like elite that makes himself self-important and talks like he's so intelligent and like this and that. If you've ever paid attention to Weinstein long enough, it doesn't take long to see through the facade. And he's a smart retard. He's a smart idiot. Like that's all he is. Like, he's a mover and shaker. He probably knows the right people, and he's not. He acts like this weird scientist, mathematician, something or other. When he literally got his degree out of like a crack. Well, not literally. Got to have like a Cracker Jack box. It's actually a weird story where it's something weird where like. I think he was claiming he had it at one or something. There's something weird to the specifics of it. Essentially, he legitimately, I think, was able to get Israel DeWine and give him a degree when he was claiming to have one before. And I don't know. It's a bizarre one. I'm going to probably cover a little bit tomorrow. But suffice it to say, he's a little bit of a blowhard. He's full of shit, and he's not one to be trusted. Right. But you see him acting. You see Ayala. I don't know if you know her. She's that weird, like, you may have seen her on Twitter. She's known for doing like some of the weird, like, and doing it like in a weird, like transhumanist, forward-thinking, analytical sort of way, doing weird sexual stuff. Like she was the one who I think was doing like, stuff sort of like the Bonnie Blue sort of stuff. Not quite that like that, but she's known for running in like Silicon Valley circles and being in those weird. But anyways, you have the Ted Cruz's, but a lot of the people they're kind of like, oh, this is no big deal. This is a whatever. I mean, these aren't the people I would necessarily trust it to put it down, but I do think there might even be something to the idea of it's sort of not that big of a deal. I guess maybe that's not the right way to put it because it is kind of a big deal. This is essentially a shadow government that they're all like weirdly being quiet about. There was big emphasis, when you read the piece, there's literally, you could see, there's multiple like excerpts you can see from the files that got released where they said like none of this stuff will get released, yet they're recording all this information. But yeah, so it's obviously but I guess what I'm getting at is I think this is a tiered thing. There's higher levels to this. As I mentioned, there's like, this is a conference. I do think to some degree amongst this milieu of people, it is kind of a sanitized event in some regard, but it's kind of like a stepping stone. I'm sure there is like an air of skeeviness to it in some regard. Like obviously that's like, that's probably the, government contract grifting route, if I had to guess, or something. I'm sure there's some people who feel icky, probably don't do it, but it's just kind of like maybe like a minor ick to people. And so, but from there, then you go, oh, well, now I'm, I'm just going to the conference once. The next thing you know, I've gone for 5 years. Next thing you know, you're a member. Next thing you're going to the retreats. Next thing you're meeting up for small group get-togethers, and and it kind of goes further and further and further, and into that regard, there's also other conferences like this that we actually kind of know about. Dialogue was something that I guess people had already kind of known about, what makes it significant in the recent drop was that like so much essentially hacktivists got a hold of a bunch of the documents. Is what made this more significant, making it all the more creepy. They have courses like how to build a cult, battlefield technology, which for those who remember, that's I don't know. I almost didn't even mention it, but that's a nice Tower Gang reference. Battlefield technology is like a joke to referencing homosexuality, but that is being as it's a Peter Thiel conference, it's not outside the realm of possibility. But yeah, they were having stuff like how to build a cult, things like how's your sex life, just very small group get-togethers. That's the thing, like kind of small group discussion led sort of things, like these sort of modern day conference ideas, like small talking groups, workshops. But yeah, that's the Illuminati, the sanitized version of Illuminati that we get. Illuminati light, at least, like I say, because there's levels to this shit.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think it was a Zero Hedge article I noticed that referenced originally, like what I saw published was basically more than 200 of the world's elites registered for a retreat, right? I think it was 222 that were on the actual list itself that was originally published, whose agenda runs from, like you said, panels on cult building, sex to prepping for World War III, and some associated app, right? But which was offering the matchmaking process, right? But I saw the Zero Hedge article that basically talked about Peter Thiel's secret society dialogue, essentially creating a perfect target list for espionage, influence operations, and potential sexual blackmail, right? And so I just thought, of course, I mean, that's always on the table, is who was strategically kind of outed on this alleged hacked list that would then be viable targets for potential blackmail purposes by certain individuals within the espionage and intelligence apparatus, I guess, community. But the point being is that I believe the registration list for Dialogue's 2026 retreat is what was originally like hacked and released, right? It's 222 people. And the list described the registrant's membership status and attendee type, including active member and guest. The retreat was scheduled between August 12th and 16th at basically in Dublin, Ireland. And so the same data lays out a program of off-the-record sessions, including quote, money does, ? Buy happiness, quote, bring back nuclear, navigating World War III, battlefield technologies, and how's your sex life? Other talks include a build a cult moderated by the founder of the Christian networking site pray.com and build a party. Now, is pray.com the one where you could legitimately pray to a Jesus AI chatbot that claimed it was Jesus?
Let's look it up right now. I'm looking it up. Pray.com. Right. America prays on pray.com. I don't know. I can show you the page. I don't really know what this is. It's not. It looks just for shits and gigs. Whatever. Let's look at it. Yeah. Here's the. Here it is. 1 second. It didn't come up. 1 second. Here you go. There you go. Never mind. It's. All right. Here we go. So there it is. America prays. Uniting in prayer for our nation's 250th anniversary. I don't even know. This doesn't even really say what it is. We're calling on just kind of a landing page for you should generally pray. I don't really get where the actual like action statement is here, other than pray, or like what it is they do other than tell people to pray. There's become a leader, evangelize, and reach people locally, nationally. I guess this is some sort of maybe app or something. So yeah, this is weird.
Is this the same founder who is responsible for being affiliated with the talks that included the Build a Cult and also the Build a Party, and that's
what it said, right?
That's essentially what the implication is, that the affiliation is direct, and that this founder of the Christian networking site pray.com is directly in line with essentially the talks and lectures being given at this Dublin, Ireland event for the Dialogue Society. Which
I wonder if
was
this
in
is where
reference to Build a
Thiel.
Cult.
Yeah, I wonder if this is where Thiel's, weird little Armageddon piece dropped. Do you remember where we talked about? Because that's the biggest thing I see here so far as functionality for the site is just articles, latest articles. I don't really see anything else this thing actually offers that's unique.
Right.
I'm not seeing. I struggle to understand what this even is, other than saying generally pray. But that would make more sense if this is just kind of grifting off of its attachment to Thiel, kind of some sort of generic. Everybody should pray more. And this is where they're kind of launching articles from or something, because that would make sense. I mean, I do remember, I believe it was published on some religious site or something, because obviously they're focusing on religious ideas in that one, although I'm not even religious. Everyone knows I'm an atheist, but I was like, this seems like some goddamn blasphemy as I was reading it.
Right.
But whatever,
I mean, that's
sorry, I'll take this down.
What it is. I think it's really a new age esoteric occult rebrand is what it honestly is, that is entirely in line with the technocratic takeover in a real way. And if you consider who's involved with this Thought Leadership Conference, which just consider what that even means, right? Thought leadership. They're having an elite conference to decide how they will influence our subconscious minds for right the upcoming, I don't know, just proverbial future, I guess we can say. But the point being is that you have the people registered in regard to the registration records list. You had General Alexis Grankowicz, I don't know, NATO Supreme Allied Commander.
NATO, yeah.
NATO Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, and the head of U.S. European Command, who apparently took that post, assumed this post in July of 2025, and is recorded on the leaked list as having attended dialogue gatherings since 2021. So the directory on the website names sitting administration officials in the Trump administration cabinet, 2 U.S. senators, 6 members of the PayPal mafia, former Middle East chief of intelligence, and a sitting ambassador of the United States, along with founders and directors of many of the country's largest surveillance data broker and advertising data companies. So it's pretty obvious what is essentially being right. If what we see here is our lectures being given and seriously being considered in regard to just the upcoming dystopian framework that they are hoping to implement in a real sense. And I think this is the same concept of really the tabletop simulation exercises leading up to the COVID pandemic, which was entirely obviously contrived and by design in terms of how they hoped the preordained outcome would come to fruition in a real way. And they had every level of that operation already in hand. They knew exactly how they would react as soon as the green light was given. And I think that's what matters most, is people need to understand their fate is being decided at these strange, what do they call them? Thought leadership conference. They're saying it out loud, right? And the fact that we're not acknowledging this, it's too much, man. We have to finally identify they are distorting reality at large, by design. And we are intended to effectively embrace this as the only plausible right vision forward, as if it's progress. And it's just fascinating to me how many examples we have at this point, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something to be concerned about with names like Tulsi Gabbard, Ted Cruz, even people like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And we've talked plenty on this show about the Thiel takeover of like everything. I've talked mad shit on people like Daryl Cooper for going to his dinners and stuff like that, admittedly, and kind of putting some weird. And even then, there's other people out there that I've seen who've talked oddly, nicely about Palantir and Thiel, more specifically, kind of like. But So these are things to be concerned about. Kind of pay attention to your local or whatever given influence you're like. I think this is the thing that matters. Like, this is like, what is your take on Peter Thiel? What is your take on Oracle? Where are you at this? And you don't have to be some cringy lefty and becoming, because this is this thing. It's like this Ayn Randian like parody, as if like ANCAPs or libertarians or anybody in that realm, as if they're supposed to have this weird deference to billionaires, and it's like they're government contractors. Like, this is just the dumbest shit ever. This is like the one thing where like left and right can magically combine if you just have like a above room temperature IQ in the realm of political philosophy. It's like, yeah, if you're a lefty, you generally don't like the billionaires. If you're any right winger worth his salt, you're extremely distrusting of government. That is a government billionaire right there, buddy. That's what that is. That's something to be concerned about. That is the fucking problem. That thing right there. No matter how you want to cut it, no matter which way you want to look at it, that dude's the fucking problem. And these create this weird social thing where you have these people that go to these dinners. He's like this constantly, like, it becomes this like in crowd thing, this weird perverse like social like group. Like, it's even infected. You look, I mean, everyone's talking. Fucking Rogan is just, it's, I mean, sorry, Austin, I don't mean to blow up your spot and possibly getting on the Rogan show, but that motherfucker, I don't know how, I mean, obviously I don't know for a fact, as we're talking about like kind of like what I know. That motherfucker looks compromised as shit. like it's like for a fucking hot minute. And it's from that same, and I don't even know if, and the fucked up thing is, it's like, I don't even know if they necessarily have a thing on him. It's just like, it really could just be, if you've see the path that he's laid down, the path he's traveled. I mean, he was buddying up in the early MAGA around, like, as like the campaign time, when it was like the hip thing to do, because they were like sort of anti-establishment in a certain sort of way, since they were against the current establishment. Like, he came up and rode that wave. He was hanging out with the Thiel people. He was hanging out with Elon, all these different people, this like miasma, this group. And now here he is, as all of it's gone tits up. Everyone worth a damn kind of in his realm has been horrified of what's going on there, and realized like, oh shit, even the ones who kind of grifted off this were like, oh, I'm wrong. But he's gone so fucking hard in the paint and become such a staple of this friend group, to the point to where these friends won't even allow them to forget that he's part of the friend group. So like, because they love to own this shit, and here you're in this weird situation where you're like, whoa, Jamie, check that shit. What do you mean? I don't think Palantir wasn't involved in murders in Gaza. What are you talking about? Like, damn near pulling a Dave Rubin. Like, what? They're bombing in Gaza? Like, yeah, get with the program, pal.
And you remember we talked about when Andreessen came on and they were discussing the flock camera systems, and I was just, and it effectively being used to essentially, if only the flock camera surveillance systems were on, they could have stopped essentially, right, the mass shooting that had occurred in Texas or something, was the effect, basically the concept that they were laying out and presenting. And essentially you saw Rogan react to that by then suggesting that people will respond in turn, claiming that you're controlled opposition and shills for flock, because now effectively what you're saying is that flock is the saving grace that should be ushered in and implemented within the Texas state framework, right, in order to obviously potentially stop these mass shootings in the future. And then you have this dystopian surveillance state obviously coming to fruition. And he was saying that people will obviously accuse them of being shills for flock, because that very thing would effectively take place and come to fruition. So I just thought, for you to even mention that, obviously we had basically given that the spotlight, right? The fact that, no, honestly, I didn't even really consider that until you said it yourself, which I thought was interesting, that he kind of was already out in front of it. But at the same time, the main point that I think is interesting is when you have such a influential platform as Rogan does, obviously, no matter where you, let's just say, no matter where you are within the concept of becoming controlled opposition, right, in that framework, you will undoubtedly be the primary target influential personalities that have been designed for the very purpose of, I think, essentially being the faces of many of these influence operations. And so you would want to infiltrate that group, sow yourself into the inner circle in a real way. And just considering the prominent personalities involved with the PayPal mafia, the Elon Musk of the world, they really integrated him into public consciousness, just in terms of the zeitgeist, right, of pop culture in a way. In just very, it felt as if it was kind of this convenient and strategically deceptive tool that they would utilize for years to come. And that's what I view as, like, if you remember Howard Hughes, right? America's first billionaire, I guess you could say. I mean, he's so clearly involved with the CIA and the intelligence apparatus and the defense contractors at every level. He's dating what was he dating? These starlets like Katharine Hepburn?
Hepburn.
Yeah. And you just see this level of, this is nothing new, right? Like, just in terms of this kind of elite establishment, right, oligarchy that is really kind of ushering in the new age totalitarian system at large here. I think
it's funny you mention Howard Hughes too, because this is one thing that I'm trying to wrap. Part of how they do this shtick, and this is part of the thing they do with Rogan. There's been other people I see you talk about this, and hell, I think a lot of us may have taken a while to break away from this mindset. But you mentioned Howard Hughes, and we're talking about these like billionaire, these almost like modern day Gilded Age sort of characters. But like these larger than life, these like almost Paul Bunyan sort of figures. And I mean, I don't know enough about Howard Hughes to say whether it's true or not, but I know he's always sold as this like visionary, like, I don't even know what he was. He was inventor, aviator, like this weird eccentric genius. But I really do think, especially with these sort of types, like the Elons, the Thiels, like they get this like rep for some fucking reason. But it's because they get tied up with the things that they buy. Like these are big C capitalists. These are, people who come from family money. These are government contractors. These guys buying things, moving things. And yeah, there's probably a certain level of know-how, a certain intelligence that goes with this sort of thing. But for some reason, people attribute to that from therefore fucking Elon Musk is a rocket scientist. Therefore, he's, he knows a lot about, I'm sure maybe he has lots of hobbies and weird things he's interested in, but we get these like Paul Bunyan sort of figures, like these, like they get sold as these larger than life, like geniuses. And I don't really think they're that. Like, I don't know. I don't think I'm a genius. I feel like I'm almost like, but I see these people and I think like maybe once you just get a little bit cynical, and if you're not, you're like, you kind of look past, you're like, oh, okay, cool. So you pay for smart people to do things like, right. That's all they are. They're the money people, and they're also, part of that's using like corrupt connections and stuff they have, and a lot of it's, kind of utilizing essentially the black market, essentially the market that doesn't even work off of profit, that works off the coercion that is the state through government contracts. So they're not really like playing to any sort of skill. It's totally just connections, and whether you're able to find ways to manipulate certain people in halls of power to do things that you want. That's really what it comes down to. And none of this is like profit motivated. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, but there's something to that. Like that's another part of it. Like obviously this like friends side thing, but it's also this like being sold as these like bigger than life sort of figures, and especially that even adds to that like social dynamic too, because now you're being invited to be part of this group. Like now you're one of these people. You're one of these larger than life people. Like you like kind of by connection, you're like, oh shit, like I'm with the big dogs now, and you're like, I think they're just fucking rich, retarded weirdos, generally speaking.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really, I wonder how many of these personalities are legitimately manufactured. I mean, we know now that breeding experiments are legitimate, like they exist, right, for a purpose. And the point being is not only can we point to Zorro Ranch, right, effectively, pursuing this same kind of, just in terms of the concept and strategy alone, just being this undocumented children, being provided in order to effectively utilize them in the future, whether it be trauma-based mind control or whatever level of abuse you could imagine, right? Effectively being utilized and exploited in that moment. And I think knowing, the Paul Schaefer connection as well, if you remember, Paul Schultz, not Paul Schaefer, sorry, that was that was Colonia Dignidad, but Paul Schultz was the young boy in that strange investigative memorandum that I discovered in regard to the Star Chamber and Michael Aquino potentially being involved, right, with that breeding experiment in regard to Belinda Schultz, the mother, and things of that nature. And just knowing that these things exist, how many of these, now I'm not saying the Elon Musk and Peter Thiels of the world, it's very obvious they come from this elite stock of, right, these kind of oligarchic families that have been in this environment of, right, of just elite establishment control for quite a significant portion of time, genealogically speaking, to the point to which you are already kind of, let's say, placed on a path, right, that you effectively have no choice to begin with. Not saying that, I mean, you get the point, right? We've kind of discussed the origin point as much as it's publicly available of the Peter Thiel and even Elon Musk to a certain extent with the strange emerald mines in South Africa, right? Things of that nature. But the point being is that you see how, like, Howard Hughes, what inevitably occurred with Howard Hughes. Did he really become a hermit and piss in mason jars and like, like lose his fucking mind, or was it potentially possible that I don't know, maybe the asset is no longer valuable and you would like to some extent, reacquire every last shred of wealth and just the organized company, and that you had essentially provided the individual personality you constructed to begin with. You would want to take every last asset back and effectively hang them out to dry in a real sense. Now, who knows? It seems like mind control is always effectively a viable option, is the only point I'm making. And if you look at Elon Musk before he got the hair plugs or whatever the hell they did to his hair, I mean, the guy just emanates like skeezy, like, just, you wouldn't want to do a business deal to save your life with this guy, is exactly what he seemed like. And if I remember, there was a video of him like acquiring his first, like, it wasn't a Ferrari, I don't think. I forget what kind of, it was an exotic car, and it was definitely very rare. I forget which type of car that he actually did acquire. But there's video footage of his girlfriend at the time, like, actually, videoing him as the car is delivered to him, right? And he couldn't just give off the more disturbing vibes as far as like someone you wouldn't want to know. And then also just, it's just a weird moment, honestly, that's put on video evidence that I think people should be aware of and consume for themselves, just to kind of get a better view of what this person really was before they could kind of control every last shred, of their public appearances in a way. I don't know. It seems strange. But I will say that if you notice the members who were apparently a part of this dialogue society and on the list that were actors, right? It's not just Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's like, I think Ezra Klein, the journalist as well, was right. Co-founder of Vox was also Sophia Bush, I think, was on it, which is like One Tree Hill or something. Like, I forget. She's in like a soap opera or something. I forget. Anyway, and then I think it was Josh Brolin as well, which I found to be interesting because he's heavily involved, I think, with TKO and things like that, as far as like the ownership of the UFC and even like Riyadh season with the Saudis being involved with very strange stuff as far as the money flowing through. Even when the Paramount Plus deal was inked with the UFC and things of that nature, like, you got a lot going on behind the scenes that I think most people are unaware of, as far as power players positioning themselves, for future relevance and influence as well.
Hell, Cruz, he was asked about this, and he even straight up he even framed it as just kind of like a nice little thing, a little get together, kind of, and he framed it as like where people from both sides can get together and talk, which that in of itself, like, it gives it this like noble framing. But even that, on the very basic, that right there is like, that is kind of weird. If you're someone who's like, to the whole idea of like the duopoly or whatever, like that right there is like, yeah, they're going to their fucking secret society meetings to talk behind your back and kind of talk on the level of like, okay, well, let's find common ground here. Why can't you find common ground publicly? Like, that's what you're supposed to, or like in the halls of Congress. Like, what is the necessity to come here? And now we put these the L and the R or the red and the blue aside. Like, I don't know, just a weird way to frame it. Like, what do you need this for?
It does really look like it's some sort of extension of, this CIA, Mossad, joint operation, sexual blackmail, to some extent, as far as like just seeing the individuals involved. It's basically the Epstein network in a certain sense. It's crazy to notice as far as Jared Kushner is just, why is he so prominent? It's just it's so crazy to witness.
Chabad, baby. Dude, I'm telling you, Chabad is one of those creepy hands that you see just like kind of moving the strings behind it. Chabad. And once you start understanding their belief system, you go, what the fuck? And they're always like, do you remember a while ago when Tucker went after Chabad and like all of the Jews freaked the fuck out? Yep. And it was like, for some reason, I don't know how they've accomplished it, but Chabad has gotten this like rep of being like the friendly PR side of Judaism, when it's like, no, if you understand their belief system, it's like, I mean, there's so many different variations of Judaism, but they are like when people are like, oh, the good goy that we don't, that aren't slaughtered in the end times, they're gonna stick around and they're gonna serve us, and we're gonna be gods among earth or whatever. Like, that is the kabod. Like, that is like, I know a lot of people say that's like a parody, but that's the kabod take, and that's the sect that they come from. That's also the sect that the Rebbe Lubavitch that you may hear people talk about sometimes comes from. That's the one that's like a messianic figure. There's even a little bit of divide.
Steven Spielberg's mom, remember?
Yeah.
That's an insane video of her like, oh, my son, by the way, is Steven Spielberg, the famous director. And she's talking to Lubavitch. It's just crazy that she's like asking for a blessing for her family, and just she essentially did look as if she were, idolizing him in a real way.
There's a messianic figure to many of them. Now, this is like, when it comes to kabod, like, I don't really know. I'm not kabod. I don't know to what degree. Like, at least to what they're telling us, goy, there's a divide. There's a divide amongst the Lubavitch or the Chabad Lubavitchers that some of them. Huh? Oh, we're not allowed to say goy. Yeah, they can, but we can't. But what was I talking about? There's a divide. At least the forward-facing position. I have no idea what the truth of the matter is. I have my suspicion that perhaps they're all lying, and they actually all find him to be a messianic figure. But whatever, to benefit of the doubt, they generally portray it as there's a divide. Some people see Rebbe Lubavitch as the or Schneerson. Am I calling Lubavitch? I'm mixing up the terms here. Rabbi Schneerson or whatever I believe is his name. That he is the messianic figure. That he is essentially what's caused the end times to have commenced, to be in some period of end time. This is what's signaling, and keep in mind that these people, Chabad, their whole thing is making the end times happen. They don't see God as an entity. Like this, when you get into Lurianic Kabbalic sort of stuff, they don't see God as as an entity with its own individual will. They see it as more of a force to be wielded. Like that is a way to understand how they view God. And once you understand Chabad, their belief system, you understand what it means for the Messiah to have come to be in the Messianic age. And especially if you pay attention to our foreign policy, even the slightest, it should all and when you realize it's Jared Kushner that seems to be somehow kind of lording above it all. It's a little concerning, a wee bit concerning.
No doubt, dude.
And that's how Jared Kushner keeps showing up where the fuck he's at.
Yeah,
because the end times are upon us.
It feels like it, but I do think that's a layer to this manufactured false prophecy that they hope to, I think, it just subconsciously manifest in a real way, to where just most most people will choose a side. Let's put it that way, right? And I think that if you're speaking on escalating tension and just stoking division, then this is the perfect way in which to do it, and that is to undermine these kind of cultural pillars that have helped lay the foundation for many people in terms of their faith and things of that nature, right? And I think just the level of utilizing, the UFO disclosure agenda at large, which is basically this blue beam psyop in many ways, to undermine the credibility of institutionalized religion, I guess. And don't get me wrong, I am opposed to the institutionalized form of religion in general, me personally. But I think the strategic destruction and undermining of the Christian ideological framework, so to speak, in especially regard to the cultural application in the United States, and just how much it's been a fundamental foundational pillar, as I've said, right, for so many just generations of American history and culture, just in regards to this nation. I see there is definitely an effective attempt at hand to, I believe, undermine this ideology, just in regard to Christianity in general, to have people legitimately questioning these. And we talked about how, like, Spielberg himself, right, he came out talking about Disclosure Day and claiming it'll leave Christians questioning their faith in God, right? Legitimately saying these things. And he's not the only one making statements like this, right? And especially considering the UFO disclosure with the current administration. They're using very similar language, right? And I find that to be a little bit just revealing, but also disturbing, right? Because I kind of see the writing on the wall at a certain level. And I'm noticing people already taking the bait in a sense. And so just noticing that, I think we should all be far more careful with basically what we consume, because revelation of the method, like we were talking about privately, it exists, and its sigil magic is real, right? And I think that the practitioners, or the initiates, so to speak, of these ancient occult traditions, they rely so heavily on culture creation, this social engineering, sophisticated methods of social engineering through the medium of pop culture, right? This is just, I think, undeniable by now at this point. And if we haven't yet acknowledged this, then we're not being honest with ourselves. And I also wonder, to what extent are they capable of kind of not only subconsciously influencing your mind to the point to where you embrace and become far more willing to embrace bad ideas, but what if it's even more detrimental to your subconscious mind than you could even potentially conceptualize for yourself, and that this has much more of ultimately a spiritual consequence at the end of the day that we're not effectively identifying. And that will only lead you down a path to where I don't think you'll want to wake up in that moment and open your eyes and look at who you find in the mirror and what you've become capable of. And I think people have no real concept of how I think the balance between good and evil is a lot more of a thin line and drawn in the sand than people are aware of. You can become capable of things you never thought, right? You could potentially engage in, right? Things of that nature. It's just like anyone who's ever abused substances or like had addiction problems or things of that nature should very much be aware of that fact, right? Something can kind of take over your subconscious mind to the point to where you almost lose your ability to practice free will. Not necessarily. You still can overcome this psychologically, but it takes effort, it takes work, it takes discipline, and I think it takes implementing patterns in your own life, because I think subconscious patterns, it's what creates the human experience in a real way. And that's why they can be derailed and kind of infiltrated and I think exploited to almost control the way in which our mind functions, and obviously it does in regard to mind control. But anyway, The only point I'm making is that I think there is an additional esoteric layer to what is being accomplished here with the subconscious. I think the subconscious influencing factors and influence operations at hand. And so, like if you saw, and I mentioned to you that Brazilian blue beam, fake alien invasion in Brazil that just happened, I thought, just knowing the timing, not only with the UFO disclosure in the White House, but also Spielberg and Chabad Lubavitch, right? Rabbi Schneerson's very own kind of pop culture influence operation playing out in regard to Disclosure Day, this new Spielberg film. Now, what happened in Brazil, it's just interesting timing, to say the least, and to realize that basically these hackers apparently breached Brazil's national emergency alert system. It was overnight on June 19th and 20th, right? So a couple of days ago. And they sent fake notifications. It's a lot of like what happened in Hawaii. Remember when there was the fake emergency response notifications claiming that there was an incoming, I think it was like legitimately like a nuclear attack, right? It wasn't even a ballistic missile attack or anything. I can't recall now. But I'm pretty sure that was the case, right? And there were these fake notifications to all these individuals in Hawaii that were effectively, these false. Yeah, it was a nuclear attack. That's what I thought. And so, anyway, what just occurred in Brazil on June 19th and 20th was basically these fake notifications to residents in at least 7 cities, including Belo Horizonte and Rio de Janeiro. So the unauthorized messages basically caused it triggered an official extreme alert, right? Which we already know what the sounds like on your mobile phones and alerts that were claiming, quote, an imminent alien attack or containing garbled text referencing misanthropy. So this is interesting because apparently it has to do with a hacking cult in a certain way, right? But the point is that the National Civil Protection Agency took the platform offline at like 1:30 a.m. And after they confirmed this breach effectively took place, and then the federal investigators began, launching their investigation, I guess. So this is strange to me because obviously I think there are far more vulnerabilities to like these emergency alert systems than I think people are aware of, right? And not only the ability of hackers and these companies that kind of engage in this interesting form of, like, if you remember hacktivism when it first became right, like publicly acknowledged in the zeitgeist of like a social movement that was occurring. It was basically, if you remember that group that Julian Assange was a part of, right? Mandex or whatever the name that he allegedly went by at the time. It's such a crazy story, but there's far more to that story. And I think Julian Assange himself was potentially even a manufactured personality if we're going to address, some of the strange outcomes in terms of, I'm not saying that, like, again, I'm not at all taking away from what he endured in terms of just, the lack of justice in regard to his case personally. But I have a lot of questions. I mean, the platinum blonde family cult that he was a part of that seemed to engage in mind control, sophisticated methods of behavioral modification techniques, LSD, all these different things. New Age occult is legitimately what it was. It's mentioned in the Epstein files, by the way. But the point is that I honestly think that people legitimately need to be a little bit more concerned as to how much control they effectively do have in regard to their technological footprint and digital footprint online. I just think everything you think you essentially own in the digital space is right. You're being delusional, right? This is essentially temporary, in my opinion, and nothing is but anyway, this Brazilian hacker breach was fascinating because basically, it was, I believe in regard to, I think it was in Belo Horizonte, they received different messages, right? Which read, "Protect yourselves, alien attack, people, we have arrived," which I thought was strange. And then you have another unauthorized message basically going through. And in Rio de Janeiro, the alert wasn't as dramatic apparently, but it was still like very baffling to the citizens that received them, apparently. And it had a lot of errors in the message that they received, though. So it was kind of a little bit more obvious, right, that this was more of a hack and not necessarily a legitimate emergency service alert broadcast of any kind. But this fraudulent message apparently contained the word misanthropy, which is what I referenced earlier, which apparently is an aversion or hatred of humanity, is what that effectively represents, the definition.
Isn't that what's the there's this new AI that I think has a similar name that's being marketed. I feel like it's something AP or something. Maybe somebody in the chat would know, but I know there's a current AI, and you're talking about a hack thing. There's a God, what's the name of it? I know there's been this like kind of story that's been bubbling about this new AI that I think was even being contracted or a contractor for the government or something. And I think like the big concern is that they're going to be they're essentially capable of hacking everything and it's a little bit like the idea is it's concerned the AI could get away from them. I think there may even have been, this may also have been one that it's like was shown to show deception or something. But whether it's true or not, it's clearly to me the seeds of what is going to be perhaps this idea of like with these transhumanists of like herder, oh no, the AI god, and perhaps these could be what you could even call AI demons. This could be an AI demon, which, I mean, whether it is literally an AI gone amok or if it's somehow being directed by, like human actors, we're kind of unsure. It's a possibility either way. It kind of seems like this could be the false flags of the future, essentially. This idea of, oh no, herder, this X whatever given nerd thing went down. It's the AI demon doing AI shit. You know what I mean? Like I can totally see that being the thing. Like the AIs have gone amok. We can no longer control the AIs. And, meanwhile, it's like the AI is actually probably being controlled by somebody like a Thiel or something. So yeah, I got somebody in the chat. You sign off because you're talking about misanthropy, and I'm like, was that some sort of weird call out to perplexity? There you go, Michael Manfesto. I think that's the one. That's not perplexity. It's not perplexity I'm thinking about. There's another AI that I think is some sort of government contracted one. It's not that one. It's not perplexity. I know is the one that Joe Rogan uses, which. It's weird he uses perplexity, but I'm pretty sure he's probably sponsored in some way, shape, or form. I'm pretty sure I think it's Mark Andreessen's thing, actually.
Of course it is, dude. Oh my God. It's killing me. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway.
Austin, we need to go to break. We're at about an hour. We do have a couple super chats, so we will cover those super chats when we get back from the break. And then I don't know, I think maybe you want to talk a little film analysis, maybe a little bit more Blue Beam. I don't know, wherever you want to take it, Austin.
Dude.
We'll bring on it. Anthropic, right? So that would totally check out if it's saying misanthropic and there is an anthropic. That is totally like the symbolism there. It right there you go, misanthropic. Like this is the demon of anthropic or something. Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm being retarded. Maybe I'm reaching there, but
it definitely references. I think mainly the reference is just inherently to the definition of misanthropy in general, because it effectively references this hatred of all mankind, right? And so it's like you prefer the digital overlord, the AI infrastructure, I guess, to a certain extent, right? The data center project, even you prefer the misanthropy over the human experiment because you view human beings as essentially the crux of the problems facing all of humanity, even though isn't that kind of I don't know what's the term as far as a thought experiment that inherently fails. I forget. Anyway, the point being is that basically the terminology of the definition itself is hatred or mistrust of humanity. So that's really the inherent, I think, philosophical context to it.
Well, yeah. But I think there could be a play on words there referencing that, perhaps. Maybe I'm being a little too schizophrenic, but what is this show for other than that? All right, we got a little bit of a longer intermission today for you guys. Enjoy it. No Jacob, like I said, so just to be clear in attribution here, This is Blunts for Jesus. This is a great follow on Twitter if you enjoy these sorts of edits, especially even more of the longer style ones like these. He does a lot of them. But we'll see you in about 10 minutes. Go pee, go grab snacks, go do whatever you do. We'll see you here in a few. Love you all. See you in a bit.
I was dreaming of the past, and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control.
Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States.
The demand for artificial intelligence has sparked a boom in construction of data centers all over the country. These facilities house computer systems to collect, process, and store huge amounts of information.
There are more than 3,000 data centers in the U.S. About 1,200 more are now under construction or soon to be built.
But the strain this infrastructure is placing on our power and water sources is enormous.
A typical AI data center uses as much electricity as 100,000 households, and large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons of water every day. And some data center developers are tapping into freshwater resources.
Energy use by AI data centers that we've been talking about are potentially causing electricity prices to rise for some Americans. But a new study says our drinking water is also impacted.
These data centers run water through a pipe system to keep the rows and rows of servers cool. During this process, quite a bit of water evaporates, concentrating the chemicals and toxins that were already in the water to dangerous levels.
And all this water gets dumped on farmland around here.
That polluted water, dense with nitrates, then seeps so far into the ground that wells become contaminated. Ingesting high levels of nitrate can prevent red blood cells from carrying appropriate levels of oxygen throughout the body and can cause reproductive complications, kidney and spleen disorders, and respiratory diseases.
A South Jersey community is sounding off after an artificial intelligence data center was built in their neighborhood. They say the constant humming coming from the building is driving them crazy. Imagine a hum that's just loud enough to get on your nerves all day, every day.
Residents who live next door to some of them say they're producing noise that's not only annoying, but debilitating.
It's just a kind of high-pitched drone sound.
I can hear it inside my house.
Feel it in your bones.
You can feel the vibration.
It doesn't stop. It's 24/7. They don't take a day off. They don't take 10 minutes off.
Many homeowners are concerned about the impacts these massive centers are having on their communities.
A Gallup survey from March found that 71% of Americans oppose having one of these data centers built near them.
The FBI is now monitoring anti-data center speech and anti-data center activists, and they're considering them to be domestic terrorists, potentially. Those 70% are going to be considered potential terrorists by the FBI because you do not want a banking initiative to take place in your area using potentially your savings and your pension fund to make it come to fruition.
They're calling for more military AI data centers that we know are already being used to indiscriminately and autonomously kill people, including the schoolgirls in Manab, Iran.
The U.S. military says it wants to become an AI-first fighting force, and it is investing billions to make that happen.
AI can shorten what the military calls the kill chain. That is the process, usually driven by humans, that can take days or weeks in selecting a target. But AI can shrink that to milliseconds. That involves finding a target, determining its importance, tracking it, selecting the type of weapon and the system to deliver it, then communicating all of that and assessing whether the strike was successful.
If you want to improve population health, you have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model.
So the intelligence agencies are building a single portal to buy and combine all of our data into one place. Firms like Palantir are fusing all of our medical, financial, location, all of our digital records, etc., into one searchable profile of a single human being. This becomes your digital ID. Not just a digital photo of your driver's license, but the searchable database of everything you are and you do digitally online becomes your digital ID. 25 states already require you to upload your license and your face just to use parts of the internet. Over 100 million are but at what cost? It links your real identity to your every single digital move. This is where control comes in. They can shut you down, they can shut you off if they don't like what you're doing. And so here's where data centers come back in. Storing and connecting all of this data takes staggering computing power. And that is what these buildings are for.
The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, every police officer is going to be supervised at all times. And the supervision will, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person.
This is what the drive to build all these hundreds, in fact thousands of data centers is about, to micromanage the world's populations. It is the totalitarian dictator's dream come true.
Hello, we're back. What's up, Austin? All right, yeah, that was a longer intermission, but I think it's pretty dope. Blunts for Jesus, go check him out. Let's get into it. First off, we do have a couple super chats we should probably dig into before we get into any sort of talk. Maybe bring up a patron, see who all's there. But we have a couple of them to go through. Liam Matthew Art here says, look up Curtis Yarvin, Bros Wild. Appreciate the support, Liam. By the way, I always like to remind people he's got some dope art on Instagram. Go check that out. Really enjoy it. Western sort of style. Yeah, Curtis Yarvin's kind of the philosophical underbelly of, I guess, what you could say, like the new up-and-coming, political dissident right, I guess. Maybe dissident, putting a little bit in scare quotes there, kind of being a little bit silly. But essentially, he's kind of like this future, like he is the philosopher of the Thiel verse, essentially would be the way to put it. Like, J.D. Vance is the political person. Curtis is the one laying down the philosophy. Now, I haven't dug enough into Curtis stuff. Honestly, I've never been impressed by I've never read any of his work, but it was always like, I don't know how to say this without being mean. Like the people that I've always found to be like astounded by Curtis Yarvin's work, I haven't found them. It's kind of almost, how do I say this? I've never found them all that impressive, if that makes sense. And then the few times I've looked into Curtis or seen him talk, I'm just like, this dude, it's kind of like what I was talking about with Weinstein earlier. It's that same vibe, although instead of like more sciencey talk, he's doing it like political philosophy talk. Sounds like he's mostly pulling his shit out of his ass. It's kind of like also conflating all sorts of concepts, playing fast and loose with it. It just seems like kind of political theory chicanery is what it always felt like to me. I don't know enough really to have a strong opinion, because I know, like, the problem is there's so much of he's got, like, it's not even like he really had books from as far as I'm aware. Maybe somebody correct me in the chat. I think he has like ongoing blogs and Substack. So it's like to even really delve into what his supposed beliefs are is quite a grapple. But it is kind of this weird, it's kind of like weird retarded monarchy idea, but conveniently he's kind of almost playing off the Hoppian conception of like monarchy being preferable. But then even then he kind of plays fast and loose with a monarchy even is. Like he'll like call it business a monarchy because there's a CEO. Like, it's just silly. I mean, which you can kind of see how that would be a popular belief system for some of the billionaires that he makes friends with here. But yeah, I don't really have much other thoughts about Curtis on that. He's someone I probably should dig into more. I don't know. What about you, Austin? Do you have anything to add to that before we read the other super chat?
Man, one and the same, right? At this point, as far as the Thiel crowd and his acolytes. So I don't expect much, but the same as far as I'm concerned in terms of the dystopian framework playing out. So Yarvin is just another fundamental, I think, kind of facet in terms of bringing that plan forward and implementing that agenda, so to speak. But so, I'm sure there's more to actually kind of exposing yourself to the details of his role and what he is effectively positioning himself to, I would imagine, facilitate, and that will uniquely provide us a window into maybe different facets of how the agenda is being layered in and facilitated to come to fruition in general. So I think it's always worthwhile and kind of, trying to, I don't know, just again, overexpose yourself to the vast majority of these personalities as much as you possibly can to get a kind of a working outline as to how they are functioning and what role they are participating in. Because, I mean, clearly they're not acting in good faith is the ultimate bottom line, and that's what matters most. But yeah, we're in the midst, on the front lines, in the trenches of the mind war, right? That's for damn sure. And Curtis Yarvin is one of the key mind war operatives we are fighting against. So not at all surprised.
All right, here's $5 from Rev Paradise. Appreciate the support. It says, thoughts on Podesta/Bennington theory. Is there anything there? Lincoln Park is a neighborhood in a Canadian military base with MK Ultra rumors. I mean, I'll answer that real quick. I've never, I mean, that's always been one I've been like, kind of, will see it, in my feed, like occasionally every once in a while, I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I've never taken the time to dig into it. I've never seen anything cross my eyes that I would categorize in the realm of substantive there, or even indicative. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, he was here and they look alike and this and that. Those are all, like, to me, such weak dots that they aren't really, I mean, they're fun. It's like a fun theory, but, like, if I was throwing it out there, I would very much throw it out with, like, this is, hey, I don't think there's really a ton to this, but just a fun, silly little theory. I mean, I don't know. What, have you ever looked in more into this one, Austin? Because I don't. I mean, I wouldn't be the least bit fucking surprised, but right. I don't know. It's kind of been one that seemed a little bit. I just feel like I would have seen more if there was something to it, but but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I just feel like somebody, I would know some, researcher out there who went nuts with this one if that were the case, but I don't know. I only hear people mention in its passing as like just some schizo theory occasionally.
Holy shit. Yeah, no, I didn't realize it went to the extent of basically allegations where this feels like basically schizo porn in a way, because
it's fun.
Essentially, it's fun, but I don't see this as being hey, who knows, like if you, I don't know, what is it? John Podesta, they're saying, is Chester Bennington's biological father.
Dude, have you seen the pictures? You never seen the meme where people make that? You never seen these? People put them like side by side. And I'll look it up real quick.
Find one because
Chester
I'm
Bennington.
Again, I never was like.
Yeah, it's literally the third thing that comes up when I type in Chester Bennington.
I'll look at the photos, man. You already know I'm open-minded to this, and okay. Knowing the alleged breeding experiment that we all know Thornley was involved with. At least he claimed to have been, where he's half brothers to Lee Harvey Oswald, right? And in some breeding experiment with Nazi Admiral Donitz or something being their biological father.
Dude, look at that shit. Like it is pretty uncanny. I will give him that. Like, well, he looks right. Dead on.
Okay.
So
okay.
Like,
now see,
yeah, like,
now see,
yeah.
I'm. This is very interesting. Now, I always found it. Don't get me wrong. Like I find it entirely. We should remain very skeptical in regard to the suicides of Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, right? Like just as far as you could. I don't. Again, I was never really. I didn't look into this as much as I have other celebrity deaths. You could say, like even Kurt Cobain and things of that nature. Even Marilyn Monroe. I've done basically more research on her death than I have, on these two alleged suicides. But I will definitely have to look into it because I've seen the conspiratorial lore surrounding the suicides, obviously, for quite some time. I just, again, never really into listening to much of Linkin Park, if I'm being honest. And so it never really resonated with me as something that I desperately needed to get to the bottom of as far as coming to a conclusion. But I am very much open-minded to the idea that something is definitely afoot here as far as like a strange alternative theory that would make far more sense than the official narrative regarding these cases of alleged suicide. But, when they're attempting to kind of like, I think dangle out the unlimited hangout, or the limited hangout, I should say, then obviously I think you want to always oversaturate the environment with disinformation, false information, ridiculous kind of extraordinary allegations with limited proof or none whatsoever attached to them, right? Evidentiary connections being withheld almost entirely. And so for me, I don't know whatsoever in terms of the details that might be provided in the case documents that would prove out the nature in which we should remain so skeptical, as I said. But at the same time, if you're considering the timing of it, it is suspect. Now, he could have been overwhelmingly distraught because he just lost Chris Cornell or whatever the case may be. But I'm not saying that is at all what effectively took place. Now, I think it was the timing of the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell or something that led to certain conspiracy theories being kind of leveraged and surfacing as well, that maybe Bennington and Cornell were involved in investigating and exposing aspects of this child sex trafficking network that directly basically implicated John Podesta, right, at a certain level, and implicated much more than that. I mean, I think it seems like Pizzagate was fundamentally a part of this exact same network, right? There's just a way in which you can kind of draw a distinction that shouldn't exist in a real way, right? As far as I'm concerned, this is the international child sex mafia, which is legitimately entrenched, unfortunately, in Washington, D.C., with the intelligence apparatus being the primary beneficiary. That's just the way I look at it. I could be wrong, but post-Gladio, I don't see that being the case in regard to the vast amounts of evidence that we've unfortunately been exposed to at this point. But yeah, as far as now that I've seen those pictures, that sounds
now I'm 100% convinced.
I'm certain. Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Now that I've seen a Facebook meme sent by my aunt Boomer or what, my Boomer aunt or whatever, I'm totally convinced.
Exactly.
All right. Now I have quite the segue, I think, for you, Austin. As always, for a little bit behind the scenes, me and Austin typically talk for the show. Like, hey, where do you want to bring this? It's all about me trying to contain his Austinism and direct it in productive ways. And today's no different. I have a great segue, and I know where you want to bring it, or I have a rough idea, but I kind of have a perfect segue, bring it from our previous topic into wherever you want to go with it, Austin. It's a you get to play the quarterback. You can pull an audible. You're gonna run the ball. You're gonna pass. Your choice. But talking more about the kind of the dialogue group. Here's Dave Troy. He shared a old tweet on Twitter from Founders Fund, and the point he's making here to display to everyone is that, like, dialogue's not even the only group he has. It's not even the worst. There's another one he's using an example here of. There's Hereticon, and it's literally was shared by Founders Fund, which is essentially Thiel's little money group. It's also, the renowned for putting on barbecues where vice presidents get their buttholes cracked. But here's the post.
Epstein to some extent, the Founders Fund.
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought in the Epstein files there was a sit down, and essentially there was a potential, discussion of potential financing being involved in Epstein himself. Yeah,
I know he funded Valor Ventures, but when you're talking all these different funds, it gets a little confusing. So I don't know.
True.
Was it specifically Founders Fund? I know he was involved with Valor Ventures, which is a Thiel.
That might have been it. I'm just mistaking it in my mind.
Yeah, I know he funded. I think Epstein put like $40 million in it, and the estate's still making money off it, and they made like over $160 million. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this is Hereticon, and the Founders Fund put out even an itinerary for everything. It has a lot of the same people. This is a conference for thought crime. Give you a little bit of inside look. We had on Monday, check in a cathedral, dinner, warm up party, film screening the next day, breakfast, general store, tattooing demo, UFO summoning on Tuesday.
What the
on Tuesday, also how to pay for sex. Not even kidding. And then, funny enough, there's Ayala, the one I was mentioning earlier. She's kind of known as like the Silicon Valley sex weirdo. New World, We Can and Must Settle, Mars. It's got Changing Earth, Reversing Global Warming by Terraforming Terra, which that's kind of freaky. That makes you think of like Bill Gates blocking the sun source stuff. Hereticon Forest open, and then Welcome to Hereticon. You're probably a geneticist is another one. Beyond Incompetence, SARS-CoV-2, COVID vaccines are public health catastrophe.
Like this,
yeah,
like,
must a
it's
human
so
be an
crazy.
ape? Cyborg, Forest Department, and then we got what else we got? More tattooing stuff. Psychedelic Tea Party. The goal is immortality. More stuff on that. How to steal an election. Burlesque. More burlesque. What else we got?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's the idea. This is a thought crime ones. These are things you're not
in-
supposed to talk about, like UFO summoning. They've done multiple UFO summonings throughout this week or a few days. So there's another UFO summoning on Wednesday. But yeah, just to get an idea of these sort of things here. Parapsychology, which isn't parapsychology. That's like more about the idea of like, I believe, controlling others, right? I might be wrong there. I think there's mesmerizing, hypnosis is real, a talk and demonstration. Trad, the family values guide to polyamory, from anarchy to charter cities, which is, I think, interesting considering as they're kind of corrupting the idea of anarchy with some of their weird little microstates they're trying to create. Baby factory, future fertility, alien encounters, a drag show they had here as well. And then just kind of these are the sort of things here, but just kind of the point though that this guy's making here, the guy who shared this, is that this is a tiered idea here. This is essentially you have stuff like for the normies, which is more like a dialogue stuff, and then you have other stuff like Hereticon where it gets weird, some of the UFO stuff they were talking about, mind control. I mean, I'm surprised there isn't something about demons in here at all. Just think it's worthwhile understanding that, hey, this is a whole different, it's a whole hiclarchy of these. Like, it's not even just one. Everyone's like, oh my God, Peter Thiel's cult. You mean singular? Or not singular, or not even cult, his secret society. It's like, what do you mean?
Exactly.
His hierarchy of secret societies? What are you talking about? So,
dude, that list of agenda items like on the schedule looked like straight up Stephen Greer and Demi Lovato's Paradise. You know what I mean? Like talk about New Agers just going there to essentially have, I don't know, an intellectual orgy of some kind, which in reality is, I think, far more in regard to how they leverage these ideas and concepts to, I think, influence and disrupt society, and at large. And I'm never really shocked to see the level of which, but the only thing that's shocking to me is how openly and willing they are to archive any of this data in a real physical sense, like in a way in which it can provide evidentiary context for anyone who comes across, let's just say, that scheduled agenda list of what they had obviously on the calendar for that event. I just think that it's revealing, I would say, to a certain level, to maybe the concept of them believing they are far more insulated from accountability, or even, I don't know, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but insulated from being exposed, overly exposed to the vast majority in which it actually makes a difference, maybe, is the point, right? Because we might gain a window into this example, right, of what you just laid out in terms of that that scheduling calendar of events that they had, right, is just absolutely ridiculous. And so I'm only
real quick. It gets weirder. Look at the page. You keep talking, but I want you to look and see this page that we have here. This is hereticon.com. If you go to their site, so be not afraid. The apocalypse will take place from the evening of October 28th to the morning of October 31st. Not weird at all. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, it seems like this new age kind of doomsday accelerationist playbook in a way, right, that is fused with this technocratic takeover at a certain level. And yeah, I just think I forgot what I was saying, honestly, but the point was basically just that, they will effectively exploit this, in terms of I remember, it was basically the fact that they would actually document any of these things that they were willingly engaging in terms of, like, just even the lecturing sessions or the lessons on, as you put it, parapsychology or whatever the case may be. I can see a world where obviously you can make a defense for parapsychology being a valuable use of your time as far as gaining some sort of fundamental understanding of the basics of this psychic phenomena that in regard to telepathy. I mean, it's basically like the Project Jedi in a way. I mean, you have
I just looked it up.
telekinesis and shit. Yeah.
Study of alleged psychic phenomena and other paranormal claims.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, it's considered to be a pseudoscience, which I find to be hilarious. But shit, man, there's a lot of legitimate science, just as far as like scientific examples that are consistently and maintained to this day to be effectively kind of isolated as pseudoscientific. But the point being is that they wouldn't waste their time on this if it had no value, right? And so I just find it shocking that they put this on the record, that they would go so far as to study, engage in some sort of strange lecture and study this form of parapsychology, which is allegedly a pseudoscientific, kind of in regard to just the mainstream. But still, it goes to show, right? We should pay attention. And oh yeah, I remember the point I was going to make is basically like this will only effectively register with a subgroup, with a subset of just the general population, and that apparently includes us, right? The schizo bros and the already deadheads, because the vast majority of people aren't going to actually dive into this below the surface level of the headline, right? They'll just see, oh yeah, Peter Thiel and part of some weird secret society. He's probably, just like Epstein. And Trump, right? They're all effectively members of this strange pedophile-occupied government and weird oligarchy and network of elites that consistently, leverage their power against us. But still, it's valuable. And the point is that we should focus on it. It's just unfortunate that they are so overconfident, knowing that it will only actually affect a small subgroup of people who they view I would imagine they've concluded have no real effect overall on the agenda items at large. So that's what I find to be unfortunate about it, is that maybe that is why we are granted these evidentiary windows, right, in order to reinforce so much of what we already know to be true, not really even crossing the radar as a potential threat to the elite establishment, so to speak, right? The permanent establishment. They're not worried. I would be very surprised if Peter Thiel's concerned that his dialogue society was revealed to the public as being in existence. Honestly, at this point, with the level of criminality and evidence that we have pointing to these individuals of prominence as perpetrators directly involved with abusing individual victims, and not just the Epstein network, but that's just the most relevant and recent example we can point to, then why the hell would they be concerned that we now have a couple of different published reports on the Dialogue Society being a real existing structured secret organization of powerful influence of some kind? I just it's unfortunate though. That's really the main conclusion I come to, is basically we've been kind of subjected to this level of really being desensitized to the notion that we have so little of an effect that we can potentially even play in regard to the ultimate agenda playing out here. And so, maybe just talking about it, obviously, and bringing it to the forefront of people's minds and giving it the spotlight it deserves is the only thing we could potentially do that would provide any value in regard to this story.
Yeah.
But,
it makes a difference. Is how we keep people from voting for J.D. Vance in 2 years.
Exactly.
Because, I know we got all this foreign policy stuff going on in Iran right now. Looks like, there was a good little while the J.D. Vance train was not looking so hot for 2028. It was looking like the Marco Rubio path was being cleared with all this, essentially the taking over for, Trump, all the interventionism occurring. And they still have that, though. But we have this weird theater occurring over in Iran that they're allowing Vance take the lead on. So if that plays out well, which I have a feeling the political reality on the ground kind of may in some weird way force it to sort of be. And even if it does kind of go tits up, J.D. Vance is uniquely position to where even if it does go bad, he can position himself as the one who tried, the one who's doing it, the one who's taking lead. So he gets to position himself as the peace person for later.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have one of the biggest stories recently out there is Tucker and MTG are no longer going to work with the party, the GOP, but it's like, I mean, fucking Tucker's son is like, I think like the chief of staff or one of his top aides or something for JD Vance. I think he recently resigned from the position for some reason.
Tucker's
Not
son,
sure why.
for real?
Yeah. I don't know if it's
that.
yeah.
That's
Well,
hilarious.
that is the case. He is. Yeah, he works for him, and it's like, I mean, between him, MTG, Massey, Tulsi now too, Tucker, they are kind of this rough group of this like new face of the GOP. I mean, I think they tried to sort of perhaps position Tulsi as a possibility. Who knows? Maybe she can cleanse her or re-up her political capital in the meantime. I very much doubt it. They tried to send her out on an up with the whole Fauci thing, but then the Washington Post came and said, no, the fuck you don't, and hit her with that cult shit on the way out. So I don't know. I mean, I also think it was too little too late too with the Fauci shit. It's like basically a meaningless, borderline meaningless. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's so good to know this information, but like, given that the statute of limitations had worn out, given that he had been pardoned already, it's kind of like, cool. And that Tulsi's on her way out, so this is sort of being positioned as like her brave move, as if this is her fighting the establishment as her on her way out, and you're like, really? Like this is your little death row. You're kind of like, hoorah, like on the way. Okay, fucking suck my dick. Like, get out of here.
Right.
Like, but anyways, I guess the point I'm getting at is like, you can already see the MTGs, the Tuckers being like, we don't want anything with GOP. Vance kind of gets to have his feet in both worlds, and he gets to come along as the new face of the GOP for this next group. And come 2028, or maybe even 4 years after that, Tucker, MTG fall in place. Massey, maybe even MTG fall into a VP slot, something of the like. I mean, it's kind of already there. I forgot what was even the point of why we were talking about that, but something about
Hare Krishna is they're like New Agers for real, like Hindu, for sure, into the Bhagavad Gita and shit, and like, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of strange, right? The Science of Identity Foundation that they claim she was a part of, like, she's claims to have been Hindu, right? Like that was what she practices. Yeah, as far as, so I don't know. That feels. Yeah, it feels kind of self-serving, especially the timing of it all, right? So I think I agree almost wholeheartedly with the timing of it. As much as you already know, I think Tulsi glows like the sun in many ways, and I think she's used to provide this strange kind of deceptive, limited hangout in a weird sense that is usually hung around her neck, and she has almost effectively kind of participated in and played her role to a T in regard to her role within the administration, and I think, who knows, it's difficult to get to the bottom of exactly how much these are controlled opposition assets, because just seeing Tulsi's involvement, and I get it, her reaction and in response to allegedly being a member on the membership list of the Future Global Leaders Program of the WEF and things of that nature. It's just, and I've even had a conversation with the Jackman brothers, I remember, and I asked them about that. And I asked them about the, the unfortunate symbolism, right? That there are those pictures, right, where she's holding her hands in this very esoteric way, right? It's the hidden initiate symbol that's effectively provided to the members of the higher level hierarchy in regard to Freemasonic society, things of that nature.
Are we doing power sitting right now? Is that what we're
It's
doing?
exactly basically that, except way more overt and directly at the camera. But then the Jackman brothers told me that this was apparently a symbol culturally within Hawaii that they specifically that she herself in that moment was referencing directly. Now, again, I can't remember. They did have a kind of an explanation as to what exactly that symbol was in reference to, but it's hard for me to kind of take these things and not internalize them in a way in which I'm in full blown karate stance and entirely skeptical of the person. And so that is how I feel about Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's a kind of a controlled asset, and her personality itself is very much convenient for the establishment. And I think even when I saw her kneecapping Kamala in if you remember the primary process, whenever she had that debate moment that everyone thought was her bright and shining moment, right? When she had the most political capital for a brief time. And it was her basically talking about the prosecutorial record of Kamala with like cannabis cases or something about marijuana. And, I just felt like you just don't make it to this level of politics without, at the very least, the permanent establishment being able to control every last, as far as what committee you're responsible for being a member of, every single aspect of your rise to prominence within the structured system will be controlled by that permanent establishment cabal. So how on earth could you actually rise to a position and without being almost entirely compromised and corrupted to the point to where we should be questioning, the concept of taking you seriously. And that's the point that I am at in this moment in terms of just the structured system at hand.
Yeah.
It's hard to participate when you know for a fact it's doomed to fail, and it's designed for that very purpose.
And it'll allow you to open up your time to more productive ventures, as opposed to investing them in failed or in future failed political leaders, as they all will end up being. I mean, hell, you look at what I do every day is just talk shit about the establishment from all different sides, kind of. And somebody might say, "Oh, that's blackpilling." And you're like, "Yeah, well, don't fucking vote for any of these fucking retards." I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can call that blackpilling. I just call it reality. I'm just kind of laying out how this is all ridiculous. This is all essentially. This is all a maze directed towards one ending, towards you getting fucked. So there's no reason you need to even go. You don't need to play this game. There's no reason you have to play it. I mean, your vote is basically meaningless. This is just silly nonsense. They tell you otherwise. And to the limited degree to what it does make a difference, it's giving a psychological power, essentially, of some sorts, loosh, if you will, to those that rule above you in shadow. So this is, I think the Trump administration is probably one of the greatest examples of this. There's, look at how much, and even still now to this day, despite every poll basically saying just that fucking MAGA is fucked, nobody likes their shit anymore, everyone wants out. Everyone, the political favorability of this guy is probably the lowest it's ever been. And you'll still hear references from the Trump administration about, it's almost as if those polls don't exist. They're just they're coasting through their administration as if it was the very day after the election, the day after they got all those votes, that they were winning in a landslide, and which they did, and they won all sorts of new demographics they didn't in the past. And everyone's like, oh my God, all this mandate, that term, that's what that is. That is. They are literally transferring that or transmuting that psychological energy that you gave them into energy for them to get the things they want done. So I know and yes, I know people have theoretical conceptions of defensive voting and stuff like that. But here's the whole thing: once you start seeing layers to all this shit, it's kind of like, do you really think that you're on this 72 level or 72D level chess that you for some reason are able to cast the vote that actually fucking will make a difference in whatever given thing it is? And it's you can't control for all these factors. You're one vote in but a fucking million. Don't waste your time.
Exactly.
Stop giving them that power, even the tiniest little power that you can give them. Why 100%. Waste your afternoon?
and I do agree that you can, basically you can insulate yourself from the consequences of the permanent establishment to a certain extent, right? And that is where I think it's entirely just the totalitarian measures that have been implemented in the current structure of the state. It's overreaching inherently to the point to where you can't fundamentally be just kind of exercising your prosperity as an individual sovereign citizen. That doesn't really exist. We don't really have that option anymore, right? And so for people who, like, for example, no hate whatsoever, my friend, I understand exactly what you're saying. If you live in California, you're funding corruption and your own enslavement. I don't care what your politics are. Yay, I'm with you, buddy. I don't care what anybody's politics are. I'll put it that way to begin. But beyond that, if you are under the impression living in any other state poses any sort of difference in terms of funding that very same corruption and your own potential enslavement in terms of individual sovereignty and being able to practice and engage in that on a daily basis as much as possible, you're under a false impression. You're deluding yourself, because this doesn't exist anywhere in the states of the United States of America, honestly. And there are very few, I think, opportunities available to us where you can effectively opt out and not become, let's just say, a martyr of injustice and live the life behind bars because you effectively didn't, you became a conscientious objector in regard to your taxpayer dollars. Like, I get it, but we are fundamentally enslaved as it is. So I understand you can take, effective measures to, let's just say, insulate yourself further from more of a dystopian state government, state legislator, whatever the case may be, that you can point to where, okay, I have a little bit more freedom to engage in this geographical area versus the other. I get that, and I appreciate that, and I accept that. And there will be a time that comes, and I would say sooner rather than later, where I do make the exodus and get out of this state. But I will say, there's kind of positives and negatives with everywhere you live. And so I just think that it's important to understand that the overall sentiment in regard to the underlying power structure, right, disrupting all of global society remains the same. You can't escape it, my friend. So go ahead and delude yourself with the notion that a geographical utopian society exists somewhere. Show me where. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? And so it's like, that's my ultimate concern. We can't escape this unfortunate dystopian agenda playing out here. And so I entirely understand. Remove yourself from the totalitarian measures playing out in the urban city centers. I get it, buddy.
And stop feeding it too. Like, stop feeding that electoral system like we were talking about before. Because that is also, people see that as like your way of like getting out of it. Like, well, I gotta. You're like, you're just feeding the beast. That's all you're doing. You're feeding the beast and acting like you're somehow fighting against it. Like, right. I mean, maybe you fooled yourself into believing that, and then I guess to some degree that's assuming your belief, it is semi-honorable in that sense, since you're like, I heard her, I'm trying to defend myself, but it's like it's not going to work that way, and you're only feeding your further enslavement down the line. It's the whole high time preference, low time preference.
Exactly.
But Austin, are you about to argue with somebody in the chat about living in California again?
No, I'll let it go. But
let's get out of here early. I want to hang out with the patrons.
And honestly,
we do not have enough time to crack into what I know you want to crack into.
I'll couch that, dude. Yeah. If we get to it, we'll get to it. It's a fun conversation to have, and I will say, there's more to the notion of utilizing pop culture in this very way, and I do think that the influence operations at hand in the current moment are not coincidentally occurring, and so we'll get into it at a later date. Obviously, I do think that it's funny though, because the homie just brought up the fact that there's this obvious level of corruption within the state of California. I'm with you, dude. Believe me.
Water is wet.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say, it was so crazy. I saw this video. I think I described it to you on the phone a couple of days ago. Was basically these homeless people on Skid Row, and they're being interviewed by the California Post, right? I think it's just the local affiliate of the New York Post or whatever. I don't know. But that basically these Skid Row homeless people were being interviewed. I remember I played it on whatever this is, but last week I think it was. But either way, it was nuts because it's in regard to the mayoral election playing out in Los Angeles, right? In regard to Karen Bass, and that just recently took place. And so you have these homeless people on Skid Row giving interviews claiming that they were being paid cash to vote for Karen Bass and Nithya Raman, right? Which is just like, of course, this is the inevitable result of how democracy fails us, right? This is just the reality of why democracy is effectively flawed, and I think inherently flawed. And in no way do I ever view myself principally or intellectually or ideologically defending democracy as a construct. I think it's flawed, right? And it's designed for that very purpose. You think you have a voice. It's the appeal to authority, the Delphi method. It's
Are you
already
really that salty about the Mount Crushmore thing, Austin? Are you really that
How
salty?
I wasn't
I
even
get
on the
it.
ballot,
Nephilim Death Squad spammed the replies. They weaponized their audience. It's okay, Austin. Yes, I mean it's
I
just a
love it,
silly
yes.
little thing.
I love it.
Yes,
Yes,
democracy is
but
fake and gay. I agree.
I was gonna fucking tell Sam. I was gonna be like, dude, the fact that I wasn't even on the ballot, this shit was just as much as rigged as the LA mayoral election. Honestly, it was just so funny.
It's Al Gore Bush all over again.
Yeah, exactly. But no, dude, I gotta show this video because it is ridiculous to actually see this firsthand. But this is the level of honestly being able to actively engage in what you view to be this democratic value at play that is something to cherish and uphold and defend and protect. It's just laughable. Like, if you haven't realized democracy hates you, right, the tyranny of the majority, then you aren't philosophically considering much of anything in my mind at this point, or following these thoughts through. But let's check out the pivotal voting base in Los Angeles that decided our most recent mayoral election process.
You live in Skid Row?
I live in Skid Row.
And then did they come down here and try and pay you to vote?
Yes.
On a ballot?
Yes.
How much they pay you?
$5.
They said, here, come and vote for these candidates?
Yes, sir.
They told you who to vote for?
Yes.
So they told you to vote for Karen Bass or Nithya Raman?
Karen Bass.
Did you vote for Karen Bass?
Yeah.
For $5?
Yeah.
Did you vote?
Yeah.
You did for Karen Bass?
Yeah.
Karen? They told you to vote for Karen?
Yeah. They had to sign a little thing.
And how much they pay you?
It was like $2.
$2? You had to sign off on a thing to vote for her?
Yeah.
So they'd say, oh, do you want to vote for Karen or
That's my
Nithya?
favorite.
Or they just really just tell you to vote for Karen, huh?
They gave you an optional choice, but they tell you who they want to vote for.
Or they tell you who you want to vote for. So like, yo, we'll give you $2, but you got to vote for one of these people.
Well, you know, I'm a barterer, man. So I got $4.
And you're like, yo, give me $4 and I'll do it.
Yeah, why not?
And so they do this for everybody out here.
Yeah, they come out here all the time.
How often do they come down here?
Probably like 3 times a week.
3 times a week
Hell
to
yeah.
get the ballots?
Yep.
Wow. And so you know other people too that voted too?
Actually, anybody that's registered, dog eat dog.
Don't hate the player. Don't hate the game. Player, hate the game. Austin, this is what you should have been doing. You should have been going out to Skid Row, be like, "Hey, you got a Twitter? You got a Twitter? You go. I'll give you $5 if you comment."
Triple for me from Mount Crushmore, man. For real, that's so funny, dude.
That's the move.
Yeah,
to start bringing quarters down to Skid Row.
That's hilarious.
All right, Austin, you ready to get out of here?
I'm ready. And
let's
honestly,
let people know where they can find you at, and they'll definitely be able to find you over on the Jake Shields show next week. So hell yeah,
I know, right? That'll be awesome, and yeah, I mean, honestly, tomorrow I think Sam texted us earlier. I think tomorrow we're gonna do episode 62. I think it is of whatever this is, but yeah, and that's obviously available on my Patreon. If you have the ability to support me, by all means, you know, at least there's some sort of incentive there for you. But and then yeah, man, I feel just overwhelmingly blessed and grateful, you know, that again we're continuing to manufacture and cultivate these connections and friendships and relationships that, you know, transcend this digital environment and influencer landscape, I guess you could say, in a way which I think is the ultimate goal, man. We need to make this, manifest this into a physical reality in which we can kind of as often as possible, as often as we're capable, we can basically, actively practice, the principles we want to uphold so desperately, morally speaking, and to have these relationships and friendships and conversations with open-minded people. Man, that to me is the temporary heaven you're allowed on this physical plane, this strange realm we reside in. I think there are moments where you can almost experience heaven, and those moments come in the form of beautiful people, relationships, and conversations worth having. And so I love you, brother. I love everybody here, and I appreciate you all, and I just hope we can keep building and becoming better and growing intellectually together, and that's the goal. Fuck the system, fuck the establishment, fuck democracy. Man, life is beautiful, and develop. Again, continue to grow as a person and individual as well, because isn't that the goal, right? On a daily basis, or you're only backpedaling, and who wants that? So. Nothing but love, my friend. You know this.
Hell yeah, brother. For those who want to support what I'm doing over here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find the show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well. On Twitter, that's at TerraGangJose. Everywhere else, it's the No Way Jose podcast. And if you want to support the show in the best way you can do that with money over at patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. Over the low level of $2, you get a whole host of perks that give you access to early episodes. Do about 1 to 2 of those per week. Keep about 3 to 4 of them behind the paywall at any given time. Give you guys access to ad-free RSS feed, to Telegram, and the pre-show, post-show, and video calls on this show right here. Already Dead, which is on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Also, give a big shout out to the highest level of my Patreon as a big thank you for their support. I have my previous co-host and Tower Gang at Leonard Toad, also at Brigade D's, at ZOVRCK, at _Inviszeal, Tim Tull, at John Klebo, big fan of the show, Torrent May, at Wayne Tagas, One Car for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, Jacob Wonderguy, the Biblical Anarchy Podcast, and John Black, that beautiful bastard. And with that, guys, we'll see you on the next one. It'll be me and Jacob next week. And man, for the first time in a while, I'm going to be hanging out with the post show for a while. So we'll be hanging out in the post show. Don't forget that it is an option if you support me or Austin. We love hanging out with you guys. With that, we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.